Right, so you've got just 300 quid or maybe a bit less to spunk out on your next blower. No bother. This slender budget can still buy you a nippy smartphone with a joyously poppy AMOLED screen, camera tech that isn't completely cack, impressively long battery life, and a smattering of features that you can't find on stupidly priced flagship phones, like an actual headphone jack and expandable storage. And I've reviewed already loads of budget smartphones right here on TechSpert, so here's my pick of the best you can snap for yourself for under £300 here in the UK. And for more on the latest and greatest tech, please do subscribe and ding that notifications bell. Cheers! Now, one of my absolute favourite budget blowers right now is the Nothing Phone 3A, which boasts some surprising specs and features for just over 300 quid. This slightly chunky smartphone sports that iconic disco arse which flashes to notify you of messages, or just in time to whatever banging tunes you've thrown on. If you can tear your eyes from that arse for just a second and flip the Nothing Phone 3A over, that OLED screen is yet another delight. While the stereo speaker setup is decent enough for enjoying a spot of Netflix, or the satisfying sound of you beating Gribblies right in their chops with an inappropriately attired anime lass. Speaking of which, thanks to those Snapdragon smarts, the Nothing Phone 3A is nippy enough to basically play any game out there, even a bit of Wuthering Waves. Nothing's camera setup is impressively flexible, with a telephoto shooter slapped in for good measure, quite the rarity for a budget-friendly phone. And even in quite challenging conditions, you'll get decent looking pics. Nothing OS is as lovable as ever, now bolstered by the surprisingly effective Essentials space, which allows you to set reminders and build your to-do list with just a push of a button. In fact, there's little at all to grumble about here. Go check out my full review of this affordable wee delight, as well as the more expensive Pro model if you've got a bit more cash to spare. Alternatively, if you're on a tighter budget, well, why not have a gander at Nothing's even cheaper offering, the CMF Phone 1. Gone is that sparkly glyph lighten, but the CMF Phone 1 still boasts a unique and distinctive design, this time fully customizable. Bored of the colour? Well, just like in the good old days, you can rip off the rear end and slap on a fresh one, with bonus accessories to jazz it all up a bit. Despite the splendidly small asking price, the CMF phone serves up a crisp AMOLED screen, excellent battery life, and even enough grunts so you can play fairly demanding games on the go. Of course, you will have to make some sacrifices here, so there's no optical image stabilization for the camera, that speaker is a simple mono effort, and there's bugger all NFC, which means you can't pay for stuff by slapping this thing down on one of those reader jobbies. But if you can live with these deficiencies, the CMF Phone 1 is a blower well worth spurting over. Now, also at the time I shot this video, Xiaomi was offering its Redmi Note 14 Pro 5G on a discount for just under £300 over on its website. And this sports a bright and palm-pleasing design with a textured back end plus full water resistance. Great news if you happen to enjoy a bit of doom scrolling while chilling in the jacuzzi. HyperOS can be a bit bulky at times, although Xiaomi is offering a good few years of updates with the Note 14 Pro 5G. And that near 6.7-inch AMOLED display is bright, punchy and supremely sharp, with Dolby Vision and HDR10 Plus support. It's proper crack for the eyeballs, ideal for streaming movies or playing games in your downtime. Speaking of which, this Redmi can just about handle more intensive fare like Genshin and Wuthering Waves as long as you drop the detail levels. Although I gotta say, I did find the camera experience quite juddery here on the Redmi, even if I was just shooting simple snaps of the cats or the sprog or whatever. The 200 meg main camera does a decent enough job as long as you're not too demanding, although definitely stick to photos because videos can be rather choppy. And the battery life here on the Note 14 Pro 5G is solid, although charging speeds have rather annoyingly dropped since the previous generation. Now, another blower that's often discounted on Xiaomi's website is the Poco F6, which you'll usually find hovering around that sort of 300 quid mark. This is another 6.7-incher like the Redmi Note 14 Pro with that same HyperOS setup. The display is another stunner, while the Snapdragon 8S Gen 3 brains cope well with any games that you slap on here, helped along by the dedicated cooling system. Battery life is once again superb, so a single charge will happily last you all day long, and you got faster charging support as well, so bung a cable in it and it'll power back up in bugger all time. And yeah, the camera arrangement again has its flaws, but it can handle some simple everyday family photography. Otherwise, now that Poco has launched its fresh new X7 series, you can actually snaffle the older Poco X6 series of smartphones for under £300, both on Xiaomi's website and through various resellers. The Poco X6 Pro smartphone is almost identical to the regular Poco X6 in most respects. You've basically got the same HyperOS software setup, the same crispy AMOLED screen, the same fast charging battery tech, and the same decent enough camera arrangement. However, the Pro model does boost the performance with its Dimensity Smart, so it is a better choice for gamers. While on the flip side, only the regular Poco X6 has a headphone jack, and that display is protected by Victus glass. If you're torn between the two, you can see my full side-by-side comparison right here on TechSpert. Now, another one of my favourite budget phones for under 300 GBPs is the OnePlus Nord CE 4 Lite 5G. Bit of a clunky name, sure, but the excellent specs and the user-friendly OxygenOS experience make it a really strong rival to those Poco and Redmi blowers. Now let's start with that bright and bold mega blue design, which is sure to attract a fair few glances as you strut down the street. And this thing's bluer than a Smurf's ball bag. But if you want something a bit more discreet, you can also grab the Nord CE 4 Lite in silver. Now this generation upgrades the screen tech to OLED, so the Nord is a cracking choice if you like a bit of Netflix on the go. And no worries on the audio front either, you've got a beefy stereo speaker arrangement slapped on here, as well as an actual headphone jack. Sadly, however, the Nord CE 4 Lite is powered by a creaky old Snapdragon 695, so gamers are best off looking elsewhere. But one of the best bits is the massive 5100 mAh battery, which effortlessly delivers a full day of play, and it's backed by 80-watt SuperVOOC charging support to juice it up again in just over half an hour. And factor in the upgraded Sony camera and you've got a pretty decent bit of hardware right here for a respectable price. Motorola is another brand that's well worth a squint if you want a brand new blower without breaking the bank, and one of its best efforts around this £300 budget price point is the Moto Edge 50 Fusion. Now this boasts a refreshingly light and skinny design with some bright and spangly colour options to stand out from rivals. Motorola's 6.7-inch screen is a crispy 144Hz POLED panel, while you've once again got a decent stereo speaker setup and a sizable 5000 mAh battery, which charges up impressively quick in a pinch. Motorola has slapped on a 50MP Sony Lite camera that's actually kinda decent for the price, with the usual caveat that low-light photography sucks harder than a toothless granny attacking a whole bag of Werther's Original. And I do love the stock Android vibe of Motorola handsets as well, although when it comes to the software support side of things, Motorola does tend to kind of lose interest a bit, shall we say. So don't expect those software patches and updates to roll in a particularly timely fashion. Alternatively, for a wee bit less cash, why not have a gander at Motorola's G85? Despite its more budget-friendly price tag, the G85 is a bit of a stunner, with its snazzy soft-touch leather-style arse and near bezel-less front end. Again, that POLED screen is a proper eye-pleaser, maxing out at 120Hz, and it's backed by stereo speakers for a merry old Netflix session. You've once again got yourself a big old 5000 mAh capacity battery, so you shouldn't be scrambling around looking for a spare plug socket halfway through the day, although this time the charging support does top off at a slightly slower 30 watts. And it's the disappointing Snapdragon 6S Gen 3 chipset which is in charge, so this isn't really going to delight any gamers out there, while the camera app is also quite slow to respond. Still, Motorola has once again crammed in that capable 50MP Sony Lite camera sensor, so it's perfectly fine for your everyday family pics. So as long as you're happy to overlook the limited software support, the Moto G85 is solid value, with a lovely stock Android vibe to boot. Nor for a super budget price, there's also the Moto G35. The performance and the camera tech are certainly nothing special, but the battery life is excellent, and once again, you've got a lovely frills-free version of Android. Plus, Motorola has once again nailed that design with a strokeably soft fake leather arse. And if you've only got 100 quid to spunk on your new Pocket Pal, well, your options are kinda limited. But Moto once again has you covered with the super cheap and cheerful G05. This bargain blower is best used as a secondary handset, or it's one for the sprogs, as it is pretty basic stuff. And again, my full unboxing and tour is live right now. Now, Samsung may be heavily pushing its fresh new Galaxy S25 flagship phones right now, but of course they're not exactly cheap, so if you don't have the cash to spunk out on those bad boys, well, no worries, they do offer some more affordable alternatives with the kind of price tag that won't absolutely ruin your Y-fronts. Take, for example, the Galaxy A35 5G, which is often found for under £300 on Samsung's website. This 6.6-incher looks like an S25 Plus, but with a more basic glass back, along with some placky edging. You've also got an old Exynos chipset in charge, so it's not particularly great for gaming, although it is fine for basically everything else. Samsung has crammed a 5000 mAh capacity battery inside of the Galaxy A35, which will merrily keep you going all day long, although as is standard with Samsung smartphones, the charging is slower than an asthmatic tortoise. But thankfully that camera setup is perfectly decent for everyday shots, even coping pretty well in dimmer light, so overall decent stuff. And also Samsung has just updated this smartphone in the form of the Galaxy A36 5G, although this is a bit more pricey at £400. Thankfully Samsung is offering some pretty decent trade-in deals. You can check out my full hands-on review right now, and an in-depth review is coming soon. And last up, if you fancy yourself an affordable blower that's also impressively expandable and repairable, well, definitely have a squint at the batshit mental HMD Fusion. Like Motorola's blowers, the update side of things does let this phone down a bit, which is almost ironic given you can transform this blower on a whim by adding extra bits of hardware like this flash ring for your vlogging extravaganzas. Where you can also extend its lifespan by ripping open the Fusion and replacing bits like the battery all on your lonesome, as long as you're up to dealing with all the teeny tiny wee screws. And also, like Motorola, you've got a sleek stock Android experience here, plus dependable battery life, although the low resolution screen and iffy performance may put you off. And there you have it, my lovelies. That right there is your Uncle Spurt's pick of the best budget phones that'll cost around £300 or significantly less right now in early 2025. Now, did I miss out your own personal favourite affordable mobile? Well, definitely clue me in down below. I've only included phones here that I've personally fondled and tested out myself. Please do poke subscribe and ding that notifications bell for more on the latest and greatest tech. Check out the reviews of any of these smartphones right here on TechSpurt if you're intrigued, and have yourselves a bloody wonderful rest of the week. Cheers everyone, love you!